Namaste, good evening and welcome everyone. Hi, it's Shakti here. So I am inspired and moved to make this live today on the myth that men are hornier than women. And this is something I really wanted to talk to for a long time, and then certain events and experiences today have just kind of pushed me to really make this live. I'm going to tell you why. So, a couple of reasons. Because my work involves teaching embodied awareness and sexual awakening for women, I talk about sex a lot. I use the word sex a lot. I use the word sexual energy, sexuality a lot. And I'm very open, of course, about my life, my sexuality, who I am and what I do, because that's the nature of my work, and because I don't have the same level of shame around that word or sexuality or my body as most people do who are very heavily conditioned to feel shame around these things. As far as I'm concerned, the body and our sexuality are beautiful, innocent and divine, and that is core and key to my teaching, my embodiment, and all that I bring through to the world. However, what I notice is that speaking in this way and being in this way means that I get attention and messages from men who misinterpret that embodiment of sexual empowerment, that embodiment of sexual energy, that unashamed speaking of sexuality and sexual energy, which is a spiritual force for awakening, who misinterpret that as an availability for sex with anyone, which it's absolutely not. It's simply me speaking the truth of my own experience and being a teacher of this. So because I speak about it doesn't mean I'm available for it with anybody, right? It's completely different things. So there's a misunderstanding that's going on there. But what I've also noticed, I'm in a group at the moment for awakened singles, and there's a lot of sexual innuendo going on in that group all the time. There's a lot of questioning about sex and sexuality, and yeah, a lot of innuendo and jokes and smuttiness and nudge nudge wink wink comments about sex and sexuality, which frankly I find boring and irritating and really immature. But what I'm seeing in the comments and the threads there is, for some people, this assumption, which I guess is pretty common, that men basically are hornier than women, and women might be resistant to that or not up for that, particularly as they get older, for example, as well. And I really just want to bust this myth, because it's based on so many misunderstandings, and these misunderstandings are at the root of sexual and relational conflict that is really, really pervasive in the world. And it's a shame, because there is so much potential available to men and women individually, or if you're in a couple, there's so much potential available to you for pleasure, for communion, for intimacy, for connection, for love, for awakened experiences of lovemaking, and the embodiment of your sexual energy through the whole body in a multi-orgasmic, transcendent way. So this is available to men and women and to couples, and most people are not experiencing this. But I want to speak to this misunderstanding that men are hornier or more sexual than women. It's a complete lie. Women are by nature desire. Women are by nature the embodiment of sexual energy. We are at source connected to this divine feminine energy, which when we are aware of it and awake to it, runs through our bodies, enlivening us, radiating through us, gifting us creativity, gifting us vitality, gifting us intuition, wisdom, spiritual insight. This is the true nature, the true essence of woman and the feminine. And a woman who is in touch with this aspect of herself, her true nature, is infinitely available. Wait a minute though, guys, if you're watching this, for sexual pleasure, for lovemaking, infinitely multi-orgasmic. She can keep going in lovemaking for hours and hours and hours. There is no end to what she is capable of, rather than available for, I should say, right? But the thing that is missing, I think, for a lot of people is the understanding of how that is made possible, what enables that. Because for that to happen, a woman must be connected with her body, she must be aware, present, and she must be open to the flow of her sexual energy. And for most women, that hasn't been realized yet. And why this hasn't been realized yet for most women, as well as most men, is there have been centuries and centuries of programming, of conditioning to hide this awareness from women, because when they connect to this awareness, they are empowered, right? This is where the feminine power comes from, is her connection to her essence, which includes her sexuality, her desire, and her love. This is where her power is, right? So there's been centuries of conditioning to hide this reality from women themselves. And the conditioning which has created that is shame and fear and objectification. So these narratives of shame, of fear, and objectification, and of splitting the body and mind, of splitting sex and spirit, when actually sexuality and spirituality are one, not separate. But this splitting has created an environment in which it has not been safe for women to be who they truly are and what they truly are, because it has not been understood. So then there has been eons and eons of sexual abuse, sexual dysfunction. It has not been safe for women to walk the streets at night. When I hold groups and workshops, I would say roughly to 25, so up to a third of women in my groups have experienced sexual abuse, and most, if not all, have experienced unwelcome sexual touch or innuendo, but actual abuse usually about a third, right? So in this environment, of course, women haven't felt safe to be themselves, and there's been this split that's been created between the virgin and the whore, which is a complete creates complete confusion for women. It's like, I have to be a slut in bed, but I have to be this really good girl, this really pure girl who's white as driven snow, who's never had sex with anyone, to be good. And it creates this confusion and this split, which you can see played out again and again in women's psyches. I see it again and again in women's psyches and in their behavior out in the world. And neither of those polarities is the true nature of the embodied, empowered, awakened feminine. These are just dualities set up by the patriarchal system that keep a woman disempowered, playing out a role, thinking she's there to please the masculine, objectifying herself while feeling deeply ashamed of her body and her sexuality because man has projected his sexual desire and his sexual shame onto her and made her responsible for his desire. Your desire is yours. Take it back. My desire is mine. I own it, right? So what you need to understand is that for a woman to open to her sexual potential, she needs to feel safe. She needs to feel respected. She needs to feel honored. So when guys are sending women dick pics or writing a message to a woman they've not even met with a sexual innuendo, that is not creating safety. That is not creating opening. So a woman who responds to that is a woman who really has no idea of her own worth. So, for example, just to give you a concrete example of this, I was featured in a newspaper article speaking about my enjoyment of sex and sexuality at 56. This shouldn't be a headline, by the way. It shouldn't be a headline. What I want to make really clear is, like, for fuck's sake, people, we're all adults here. Of course, human beings love sex. We're designed to enjoy making love. Why do you think women have a clitoris with 7,000 nerve endings in it and no other function apart from sexual pleasure? Of course, everyone loves sex. Well, they don't, but again, I'm going to speak to that in a minute. We're designed for pleasure. That's a fact. Why is that an embarrassing thing, or why is that some kind of remarkable thing to report upon? It shouldn't be, of course. It's a natural, innocent, beautiful part of our human design. It's what makes being human enjoyable. But to make it some kind of headline like, for fuck's sake, let's grow up and mature a little bit. It should be obvious that we all love sex, but what's more important is how do we relate with one another in a way that is healthy, that is functional, that is respectful, that is conscious, that gets the most from this beautiful sexuality that we're gifted with, for both of us, for all of us, without shame, but also without the shadows. And the shadows are sending someone dick pics, making sexual comments, sexual innuendos, projecting your desire onto somebody without taking responsibility for it, making someone else responsible for your desire. No. So I just want to speak to this fact that women are designed for infinite pleasure. This is our true nature. But there have been these centuries of conditioning to disconnect, to disempower, to forget that this is what we truly are. And there's been this shaming, this fear, and this objectification. So for a lot of women, it hasn't been safe, and as a result, their bodies have shut down. They have armored themselves. They have shut their hearts down because they've had their hearts broken. They've shut their yonis down, their vaginas, to the pleasure that their yonis are capable of because of abusive treatment. And I want to say now, I'm not pointing the finger and blaming men for this. This conditioning runs so strongly through men and women that there's been a lack of awareness, a lack of education, a lack of knowledge, and a lack of agency. But women have learned to be objects rather than to be subjects. So a lot of women have been suffering touch and sex that isn't pleasurable, that they don't enjoy, and every time they do that, their body shuts down a little bit more, their energy shuts down a little bit more. So they go through the motions, but they're not having the sex that they are capable of because they have numbed out because of this treatment or this behavior, which isn't coming with respect, which isn't coming with love, which isn't coming with honoring, which isn't coming with awe. because men haven't known and women haven't known either, and they haven't learnt to say no, and because they don't know what they're capable of, they cannot teach their partners. So it requires a whole re-education for men and for women, and a whole lot of healing for men and for women. I made some notes to speak to this. I don't normally make notes. Another part of this whole conditioning that we're having to undo is that for men and for women, sex and heart have been disconnected. So to have sex in the fullest potential way for man and woman, sex and heart need to be connected. And yes, this can bring up fear, because this means you need to go in with the potential that you're going to get hurt and that you're going to feel. But without that, man or woman, you're not going to be able to make love in the way that you're designed to, in its fullest potential. And you certainly won't be able to elevate your lovemaking into the heights that are possible without sex-heart connection. Tantra, which is what I teach, is all about connecting sex and heart, and all about circulating sexual energy between man and woman, between masculine and feminine, so that our differences merge in the heart. So we acknowledge that men and women are different. We come from different ends of the spectrum. So yes, men want sex and think about sex a lot, but women are infinite sexuality and infinite desire. So it's not that we're not equally as horny. We are more horny than men in that way, that we are capable of infinite expanded sexuality. But to join us in that, man has to connect his sex and his heart, and has to learn to access and circulate his own sexual energy within his own body, within his own system, which basically means he needs to connect with his feminine sexual energy, his heart, and become more aware of this energy within himself. So he stops projecting it out onto women and making them responsible and objectifying them. He learns to circulate this desire within himself. Then he becomes more empowered, more vital, more creative, more straight. And when he's making love, he can bring all of this energy and this power and this straightness to his beloved. So heart and sex have been disconnected, and men have been treating women like men, and women have been treating men like women. So there's been this complete misunderstanding and this complete mismatch. Men go straight for it, right? Straight. Women, sex is about everything. So if a woman isn't getting turned on by what's happening, it's because something in the periphery isn't right. And this doesn't make her wrong. This isn't something to blame the feminine for. This is something to understand that you are different. So if you want to have great sex with your partner or with any woman, then understand that for her, sex and sexuality is a spiritual experience, and it's about everything. So you have to start your foreplay by coming towards her with respect and honoring. Then she'll open a little bit. By bringing flowers and chocolates and gifts, she'll open a little bit more. By honoring your word and being in integrity, she'll open a little bit more. By being responsible, by helping out with the chores at home, she'll open a little bit more. By having honest communication and saying what you mean and meaning what you say, she'll open a little bit more. So by the time it gets to actual physical contact, she's already open to you in her heart. If her heart is open to you, her yoni will open. The quality of touch, the presence of touch, is so important. And again, so many women have been suffering touch, which is unconscious, disrespectful, grabbing, taking. And of course, with that level of touch, or that kind of touch, her body is going to tense, contract, and shut down. A woman, her whole body is her erogenous zone. Her whole psyche is her erogenous zone. All of her. So if there are sexual problems in a relationship, it's not usually about the sex or the body per se. It's probably about a communication issue or a resentment that's being held onto about something that hasn't been resolved. But yes, it's also about the nature of making love. So for a woman, you start on the outside and you work your way very, 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 very slowly to the inside. You don't go straight for the bits. That's really going to be a turn off, right? So you're opposite, you're different. This needs to be understood. When these differences are understood, and this is what I teach women, to understand themselves and to reconnect with themselves, then they're far more likely to be able to teach that and share that with a partner, right? But basically, I feel like we all need to grow up, and like I'm so tired of sex being this smutty, like giggling behind your hand, teenager, well, even like junior school, like, you know, when you used to say the word Willy and everyone giggled. Like, guys, we're grown-ups. The shame is a programming of patriarchy to keep us disempowered and disconnected from ourselves and one another. Sex is innocent, it's beautiful, it's powerful, it's sacred and holy. And when a woman or a man truly connects with their sexual essence, it's a force for spiritual awakening, for the dawning realization of the oneness with all, of the realization of the God self. This is the potential of sacred lovemaking. This is what I'm here for. I'm not interested in anything else, you know. So if you're a man watching this and this is what you want, then, you know, forget the dick pics, forget the sexual innuendo, forget the high, beautiful messages. It's not going to get you anywhere. Start to recognize that the woman that you're interested in has a soul, has a heart, has a history where she may have been abused, she may have been disrespected, she may have been groped on the street, she may have been flashed at. Speaking personally, I was flashed at when I was 9 for the first time by an old man. I was the recipient of catcalling from about the age of 11 onwards, just walking down the street. I had constant comments made about my body from the age of 14 onwards by men, strangers. I had a man attempt to rape me. I've had men run up behind me and put their hand up my skirt, trying to get their hands up my knickers. I've been groped on the underground. I've had men expose themselves to me while I was interrailing several times. So you get the picture. So in that environment, it doesn't feel safe to open. For a woman to open, so her sexual response is all about opening. It's all about becoming receptive. That is such a vulnerable place to be. When she opens her yoni to you, she's opening her heart. She's opening her soul. She's opening her energy field. That is really vulnerable. But she will only be able to have the ultimate experience, either with herself, with her own energy, or with a partner, if she feels safe to open all the way. Orgasm is about letting go. It's about opening all the way, right? So there has to be trust, there has to be respect, there has to be honoring. And love. It's called lovemaking. So let's grow up. Let's ditch the shame. Let's behave like adults. Let's recognize that everyone loves sex. It's a beautiful thing. Let's stop talking about it behind our hands. Let's stop slut-shaming people who are open in their sexuality. It should be enjoyed. It's a God-given gift. And let's all do the work of healing and learning to understand ourselves and one another. We're different. Let's understand the differences. Let's understand what turns us on, what turns our partners on, what men need, what women need. It's different. We're all unique and we are different. Let's understand. Let's talk about it without shame. Let's just be honest. Let's be open. Why not? The potential that is available to individuals and couples is so immense and so untapped right now. And personally, I'm really passionate about this because for me, I see sacred lovemaking as fundamental to the shift in consciousness in the world. And I'm not joking. Sexual energy is spiritual energy. It awakens consciousness. Conscious lovemaking is creating more love between two people and in the world. It balances the polarities of masculine and feminine energies. And right now, out in the world, there is a very big imbalance between those two energies, and there is a lot of unconsciousness. Look at the people who are leading this country. Immature, unconscious masculine. Unevolved, immature, unconscious masculine, completely cut off from their divine feminine, completely cut off head and heart, sex and spirit, completely cut off, right? Take those men and introduce them to Tantra and they would change beyond all recognition. So we need more awakened hearts and minds and bodies in the world right now. We need more love in the world. We need more union and communion. We need more understanding between men and women. We need more lovemaking. We need more awakened lovemaking. So conscious lovemaking does all of this. It brings harmony, it brings love, it brings radiance, it brings ecstasy, it brings bliss. Do you think if couples around the country and around the world right now were experiencing the bliss and the ecstasy that were actually available to them, that all this shit would be happening that's happening right now? That they would lie down and take all this bullshit? No, it simply wouldn't be possible. So, from my perspective, the more love we make consciously, the more we unify and integrate our masculine and feminine within and between us, the more peaceful and harmonious and beautiful the world becomes. So I want every woman who's watching this to really get, you are super sexual. This is your true nature. In your sexuality is your power, your pleasure, your desire, your waking up, your embodiment, your ecstasy, your radiance. For you and no one else. For you, as you become the subject of this, nobody's object. Men watching this, understand that to see your woman shine bright in that, she needs to be safe. She needs to feel loved. She needs to feel held. She needs to feel seen. She needs to feel respected and honored, and she needs your presence. And yes, I teach women to do and be this for themselves first and foremost. So my work is about healing the damage, the trauma of the patriarchy and of all that's gone before, because every single woman has it in her cells, in her body, in her yoni. And then to support women in releasing that programming and reclaiming their sexuality as their own for themselves, so we can all be standing sexually empowered, alive, vital, creative, as sisters, right? Not as competitors, as sisters. Because that whole competitive thing, that's another part of the patriarchal programming. It's a load of bullshit designed to separate and divide us. Your sexuality is innocent, it's beautiful, it's perfect, it's divine. Just like how you were born. When you were born, you were perfect, immaculate, you were naked, divine. This is your divinity. So my invitation to you is to remember this. So yes, I work with women, and any woman watching this, If you're interested in learning more, I have a Facebook group, Awakening Shakti, here on Facebook. I have a website, shaktisundari.com. I work one-to-one privately with women. And tomorrow, actually, I'm starting to teach the second round of my RAPTURE program, which is a 6-week immersion for women, which takes you through this whole process of healing the shame, letting go the patriarchal narrative, all the conditioning, and reclaiming your sexuality for yourself from the ground up. I'll post the link to that below in the comments. And any man who stayed to watch this, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. What I'd love to say to you is I don't work with men, but I know therapists who do. So if you're interested, reach out through a private message and I can connect you up with some really amazing therapists who work with men in the field of Tantra and sacred sexuality. But if you are a man who's been watching this with curiosity, and if you are single and sexually frustrated, I would say welcome to the this age where it's a lot more difficult to meet people, first of all, and that sexual frustration can be a gift to you to deepen into connection with yourself, your energy, your feminine, your power, before you go and meet your next lover. So this energy, this horniness, this desire is your sexual energy, and this can be channeled within you, within your body. You can learn to circulate this energy within you, and you can learn to have orgasms that run through your whole body. You can learn to orgasm without ejaculating, right? This is perfectly possible. And in that, to expand your sexual experience into the spiritual realms and become a better lover for your partner when you meet her. So don't waste that energy. You know, it's the energy of life. It's the energy of vitality. It's the energy of health. It's the energy of healing. It's the energy of creativity. Don't waste it. Learn to channel and circulate it and build it and amplify it within your own body. And if you are with a partner and you're having sexual difficulty and challenge and feeling unmatched, right? Guarantee you that this is not purely about technique. When there are sexual issues, just understand that for a woman, her sexuality is about her whole being. It's about her psyche, her emotions, her spirituality, and her body. Understand that she may have been abused or traumatized in the past. And have honest and open communication, you know, about what's going on, about your needs, about your desires. Ask, how do you want me to touch you? What do you actually really love? What don't you like? Start from the outside in. Go really slowly. This kind of communication needs to happen. And if you're not willing to have that kind of communication, I've got to question why you're in relationship, to be honest with you. You've got to be able to have totally honest, transparent, open communication. And communication and honesty is a turn on. Withholding information, not saying what you think, not saying what you feel, creates barriers and closure and cutting off. So communication is always a bridge to intimacy, and sexuality is, and sex is ultimately intimacy. Intimacy. So intimacy on all levels builds the field for really loving and potent and powerful sexual intimacy. So that's me over and out. I hope this has been useful. I hope this has been inspiring. I haven't been able to see any of the comments as I've been talking, so I will go back and look at the comments now. Don't forget to, women, come and join my Awakening Shakti group and look out for the details on my Rapture program, which starts tomorrow. You're still super welcome to join. And of course, reach out if you'd like to work with me one-to-one. Sending you love, sending you juiciness, and here's to all the horny people out there. Remember, the horniness is yours. It's your energy. Learn to circulate it, enjoy it, bring it into your body and let it fill you up from within. And then we're going to have loads of radiant people walking around. How amazing is that? Lots of love. Namaste.